some of us to accept. I think he told this parable about justice because he knew that the world is not fair. He knew that wealth brings privilege and insulates us from the needs of others. He knew that human institutions are not blind to the influence of wealth or class or a whole host of other things, no matter how many times we put statues of a blindfolded Lady Justice in front of our courthouse buildings. Jesus knew about human nature and knew that it is just in our nature to assume that the sufferings of others must somehow be their fault. At any rate, they're surely not our concerns. We have boundaries. We're not involved in that. It's just, we'll let you know if it bothers us. And Jesus knew that if you are poor, like widows tended to be, he knew that everything is harder and more expensive. He knew the stain of prejudice that runs deep in human nature. He knows how that stain, whether it is based on skin color or gender or ethnicity or sexual orientation or political affiliation or education or class or accent or language or country of origin or size or age or physical limitation or immigration status or whatever. Jesus knew how that stain runs deep. And that there are people, unfortunately, people who will use whatever power is at their disposal to hold down the folks they think should be beneath them. And they will do that in order to favor, privilege, benefit people that they think are more like themselves. Jesus knew that the dark stain of prejudice always resents and resists the light. Jesus knew that wherever goodness is found, evil will set up shop across the street. Jesus knew that his followers were going to encounter judges and magistrates and governors and bureaucrats who do not care about what is right. And Jesus knew all too often that where there is injustice, there will be lots of folks who cannot be bothered, who just do not care if whatever is wrong gets put right ever. If putting it right means that they will be inconvenienced in the slightest, or if the wrong people are the ones raising the complaint. It's a lot of stuff most of us knew, but speaking for myself, don't really like about the human family and the world that we live in. And so Jesus gave his disciples this parable. He gave us this parable of the widow and the judge to tell us how to deal with structures and institutions and authorities that do not care about what is right or what is fair. And so Jesus says in a certain city there was a judge who neither feared God nor had respect for people. And in that city there was also a widow who kept coming to this judge saying, "Grant me justice. I've been wronged. Put it right. Give me justice against my opponent." But there is a pretty good chance that it was about, because widows in particular were vulnerable to dishonest merchants, tax collectors, and clergy who would take them into their confidence, who would prey on their fears and their loneliness in order to devour what little savings they might have had. Jesus does not give us the details concerning this woman's case, but what we do know What we do know from the context here is that she has gone to a Roman judge. She's gone to a Roman judge seeking redress for the wrong that has been done to her. Now, in most villages of Jesus' day, a panel of 3 Jewish elders would have heard and settled disputes among and between the Jewish people. But she does not take this matter to the elders. She has taken her case to a judge. And apparently she has either gotten no satisfaction from the elders of her people, or more likely her opponent, the person who has exploited her, is not Jewish. He may be a Roman official, might be a tax collector, maybe he's a Roman merchant. In any case, however, the balance of power is tipped profoundly in favor of this widow's adversary. This woman has very little influence or clout compared to her opponent. And the imbalance of power is far greater when we compare this woman to the judge himself. Because the onlyest person in this parable authorized to speak on behalf of imperial Rome is the judge. The only opinion that the government will endorse and enforce is the opinion of the judge. The only credentials and the only one with the capacity to render a decision binding on all the parties involved is the judge. In a Roman-occupied village of Jesus' day, the resolution of legal disputes and the administration of justice were rendered at the sole discretion of a single judge. For the non-Roman citizens of that occupied land, there was no process of appeal outside of that same individual judge. There were no other avenues to go through. There was no higher court to appeal to. There were no independent councils of judicial oversight. All authority to resolve the legal disputes rested exclusively with this one judge. You picking up what I'm laying down here? Whatever the judge said was law. Whatever the judge thought was fact. Whatever the judge decided was the way it was going to be. All power is concentrated on this one nefarious judge, while the widow finds herself utterly at his mercy. She is utterly at his mercy, but he has no mercy. He has no mercy. According to Jesus, this judge has no regard, no respect, no compassion, no consideration for God or anyone's humanity. So this widow's problem is not just that she has a problem. Her problem is that the only person legally empowered to resolve her problem could care less about her or how this gets worked out. And I know that many of you in the sanctuary this morning know what this is like. You have experienced this. Say your grandkid is struggling in school. He comes home in tears nearly every afternoon. He is not learning. And so you cajole the parents to get on the ball here, and finally they go down to the school and they talk to the teacher, talk to the special ed teacher, and talk to the assistant principal, and talk to the principal, but they can't find anybody who seems interested in doing what it takes to get this kid the help they need so they can learn. Or maybe you're sick. You know that something is wrong. You know you don't feel well, that your body is not right, but your doctor can't pin down a diagnosis. So she refers you to a specialist, but you can't get an appointment with a specialist for like 8, 10, 11 months. I mean, we know what it's like. And so you call and call and call, but nothing is available. They'll let you know. You wait and wait and worry about this thing that is wrong with you. Or worse, your doctor orders tests and writes you a prescription, at least to address the symptoms for now, but your insurance doesn't want to pay for it. They need prior authorizations. They need to review your coverage. That lab is not in network. It's all delay, deny, delay. You feel me? Yeah. Or what if your concern is for the soul of this nation? But those in power are gridlocked by self-interest and the 24-hour news cycle and the relentless need to raise money to get reelected so they can raise more money to get reelected. So we limp from crisis to crisis without anything that looks like anybody has any regard for what is right or what is best for the people. In a certain city, Jesus said, there was a judge who neither feared God nor had respect for anyone. And in that city there was a widow who kept coming to him and saying, grant me justice. Not enough of you mouthed that last word with me. She kept coming to him and saying, grant me justice. Now, before we write this woman's case off as hopeless, before we conclude that she does not have a pig's chance at a barbecue of getting what is right from this judge or this system, I want you to see that she has a couple of things going for her. There are a couple of things working in her favor. And the first is that she is going to defy the power of stereotypes. Because according to the social context of her day, widows were supposed to be weak, defenseless, dependent on others. No one expected much of anything from a widow because typically widows had little to give, little power to buy. But the widow in this text defies those assumptions. Instead of being weak and defenseless, she summons the courage to march right there and stand in front of the judge for herself. Instead of looking for a handout, the widow looks for justice. Instead of waiting for a man to come and take care of her, this widow steps up to the man and starts taking care of business for herself. And this is important because there is power in refusing to accept the limitations placed upon you by people who just don't know you. There is power in refusing to accept the limitations that people assume about you. There is power in making people who look down on you look you in the eyes. In this life, there will always be somebody, some group, some organization, some institution, some political pundit, some power, some principality that will attempt to label us and degrade us and push us aside to the categories of deficiency and defeat. But when that happens, Jesus wants us to know that there is power in proving ourselves to be more than what other people expect. So to quote a police officer friend of mine from a long time back, at one level, the message here is get tough or die. Stick it out. Now, the second thing this widow has going for her is that she has the power of persistence. And this, I think, is what sets the widow apart from many of us, and I include myself in that assessment. Most of us, including me, when we have an idea, when we have a dream, when God has laid a burden on our heart, when we know that something needs doing and that something is wrong and it needs fixing, most of us we'll tell somebody once. We'll say it once. We'll mention it to a coworker or a boss or a partner. We might drop a note in the suggestion box. But if that idea is not celebrated immediately, if it's not endorsed without delay, or worse, if the answer is a flat out, "Are you out of your mind?" We let it drop. We move on. We don't bring it up again. We don't want to offend. We don't want to fail. We don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. We don't want to draw attention to ourselves. And this is a bigger deal than you might think. There are just a lot of people who want to be comforted, but not healed. They want to point at the problem without being part of a solution. They want to be soothed, but not identified. As a pastor, I sometimes hear this couched in the language of, I just come to church for escape. I want some place that's quiet for an hour and where people are nice to me. I don't go messing in stuff. But what this parable tells us is that at some level, faith requires making yourself vulnerable, specifically publicly vulnerable. It's about asking people to pray with you and for you. It's about speaking up at meetings and saying, "But wait, what about?" It's about admitting that things in your life are not fine, really, thanks for asking, and that you cannot handle this by yourself. In fact, you need help. It's about letting some oxygen get to your wounds. I heard someone this week say that the thing that drew them to this church and the thing that keeps them coming back is that we talk about addiction and betrayal and mental illness and abuse around here. Those things are mentioned in prayers and in sermons, and we don't pretend that following Jesus has magically exempted us from all the hard things in life. Nobody joined this church and then we handed them a get-out-of-jail-free card. Doesn't work that way. In telling the story, Jesus lets us know that justice for the widow and justice for you and me will never come about automatically or gradually. Justice will never come about without determination, struggle, or protest. The great American orator and abolitionist Frederick Douglass was exactly right when he said, "Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has and it never will." Whether it is because of the liberation born of desperation or some great spiritual insight, this widow knows that power never concedes anything. Never has, never will. At least not without a struggle first. And I think that's why Jesus said that for a while the judge refused this woman's request. But later he said to himself, though I have no fear of God or respect for anyone, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, because she is a nuisance to me, because I just want her to go away, I will grant her justice. And notice that the judge did not say, never said, I've been mulling this over and I think she might just have a point. Nope, never said that. He does not say, I may have been too hasty in making my ruling before, No, he never says that. He does not say, well, I was reading this new article in the Judicial Review and I think her case merits reconsideration. No. It is not because this woman has been eloquent or persuasive. It is not because of some new evidence or because she has the facts or the law on her side. No. None of those things we might wish that it's not because she worked really hard on filing briefs for herself or because the things she typed were perfectly spaced and error-free and had a nice binder. And no, it was none of those things. The judge says, because she keeps bothering me, I will grant her justice. And it is her persistence that carries the day. The judge acts not out of compassion, but exhaustion. Even in flawed systems, the flawed system will respond to persistence. Even an unjust judge yields to pressure. And if those things are true, Jesus says, then how much more? How much more? And this is the logic on which this parable turns. God is not the judge in this parable. But Jesus is drawing a contrast here. He says, if this is how a rotten, crooked judge is, then how much more? How much more readily, more willingly, more speedily, more joyously, how much more will God, who is good, grant justice to those who pray, to those who cry out night and day, to those who beat a path to heaven's door seeking what is right. All it takes, Jesus says, all it takes is a faith that does not flinch, that does not give up, that will not clam up and go away. Are you getting the point here? I saw one head, two heads nod. Okay, let's try it again. Are you starting to pick up what's going on here? Have you learned the lesson yet? Power does not concede power without struggle. And so if we are to find justice for ourselves, justice for the poor, justice for the earth, justice for those who are pushed aside, put down, left out, left behind, then we'd better be ready to speak up and keep speaking up until justice finally comes. There's been some debate this week about whether that's a good thing or bad thing for American citizens to do, but I don't care. This is what Christians do. We speak up. We get out there. We had better be ready to speak up and keep speaking up until justice comes. Because this is what it took to overturn the evil of slavery in the United States and England. And this is what it took to convince the British that occupying India was really a bad idea. And it was what it took to bring down apartheid in South Africa. It was what it took to end segregation in the Jim Crow South. And this is pretty much what it will take to end every injustice, large or small, on this planet. there's going to be justice, Jesus is telling us, if there's going to be justice, it will be because someone stands up and demands what is right. And when we stand up for justice, we better be ready to stand our ground, because the sequence of confronting injustice and indifference and making the universe bend toward God's intention, the sequence of that goes like this. No. No. Oh, no. No, 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 no. Not this time. No, no, no. I'll think about it. No, no. I'm too busy right now. No, no, it's not on the agenda for this meeting. No, no, I'm sorry, there's nothing available. No, no, leave a message. No, no. Oh, I'm sorry, that number is no longer in service. No, they're on vacation. No, they've stepped away from their desk. No, they can't talk to you right now. No, 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 no. Yes. Yes. And along the way to that yes, you are going to get discouraged. So what? You're going to want to quit. Don't. You're going to think, oh, there's no hope. Don't give up. You're going to think, this is pointless. Yeah, I'll never get this to change. Don't believe those thoughts. That's stinking thinking. Let it go. You're going to be tempted to give up, to cave, to give in, to crumble. You're going to think, I just need to get on with my life. I've been fighting this too long. But no, don't let those thoughts defeat you. I have a great member of this church who sold real estate for a long time. And they had this great attitude. I remember them saying to me once, the more no's you get out of the way, the closer you get to your yes. The more of those no's you get out of the way, the closer you get to yes. So, if the door won't open, keep knocking. If nobody's listening, keep talking. If you haven't heard anything from God, keep praying. If the answer won't come quickly, keep asking. If you keep trying and failing and failing and trying, then try and fail some more, because whenever you seek justice, God has a yes with your name on it. Whenever you seek justice, God has a yes with your name on it. Wow. To which I want to say, oh, come quickly, Lord Jesus. And, oh God, why so long? Now, you may have noticed I've got something on the communion table this morning. I'm not quite sure what to call this, but for this morning we're going to call it